The village of Frostbite nestled between towering cliffs. Waterfalls cascaded down, crashing into the fjord. Longships, decorated with fierce dragons, bobbed gently. Home. But a shadow fell upon Frostbite. A darkness crept along the edges of the world. Villagers whispered of strange lights in the night, of unsettling silence in the forests. Beyond the blade, Chieftain of Frostbite felt it too. An unease that tugged at his gut, a chill that had nothing to do with the icy wind. Something was wrong. The winds of fate were changing. And Bjorn, trained in the ways of the ninja as well as the Viking, knew one thing: trouble was coming.
The winds of fate are changing. Trouble is coming.
The seer, ancient and wrinkled, lived in a hut perched high on the cliffs. Her eyes, milky white, held the wisdom of ages. Bjorn, his bearded face grim, sought her out.
A darkness stirs.
A darkness stirs, she rasped, her voice like dry leaves. An ancient evil, long slumbering. The seer spoke of a prophecy, of a hero touched by two worlds who would rise to meet the threat. Bjorn listened, his heart heavy. This was a burden he did not want, but a responsibility he could not ignore.
This is a burden I do not want, but a responsibility I cannot ignore.
Bjorn knew he couldn't face this alone. He needed a crew, warriors as skilled as they were loyal. He thought of Yuki the Silent, a shadow warrior who moved like smoke. He thought of Thorvald Stormborn, a giant of a man who could build a ship to withstand any storm. And he thought of Lena Firehair, whose spirit burned as brightly as the flames she wielded. They were the best of the best. Together, they were Frostbite's only hope. The fate of the village and perhaps the world rested on their shoulders.
Yuki, Thorvald, Lena, you are Frostbite's only hope. The fate of the village and perhaps the world rests on our shoulders.
Under the eerie glow of the midnight sun, the crew trained. Bjorn honed his axe and his ninja stars, his movements a blur. Yuki, silent as the grave, practiced with his shuriken, each one finding its mark with deadly accuracy. Thorvald, his muscles bulging, worked on their ship, a masterpiece of Viking craftsmanship enhanced with ninja stealth technology. He called her the Silent Serpent, for she would strike swiftly and silently. Lena sparred with Bjorn, her twin axes flashing. She was a whirlwind of fire and fury, a warrior born. Together, they pushed each other to their limits, preparing for the trials to come.
The Silent Serpent will strike swiftly and silently.
Each shuriken must find its mark.
This ship will be a masterpiece, a blend of Viking strength and ninja stealth.
We push each other to our limits for the trials to come.
Together, they pushed each other to their limits, preparing for the trials to come. The day of departure arrived, the sky heavy with foreboding. The Silent Serpent, sleek and deadly, rested at the dock. Her dragon head loomed, ready to spit fire and vengeance. The villagers gathered, their faces etched with worry.
We sail into the unknown, but we do not sail in fear. We sail for Frostbite, for our families, for our future.
A cheer rose from the crowd. With a final farewell, Bjorn and his crew boarded the Silent Serpent. The horn sounded, a deep, mournful cry that echoed across the fjord. And then they were off, sailing into the heart of the unknown. The Silent Serpent cut through the icy waters, her sails billowing in the wind. They sailed through mists so thick they could barely see the bow of the ship. They navigated treacherous currents that threatened to dash them against the rocks.
With my knowledge of the sea, we'll make it through these waters steady now.
Keep your eyes sharp, everyone. Danger could be lurking anywhere.
I'm watching from the shadows, ready to strike if needed.
Thorvald, his knowledge of the sea unmatched, guided them with a steady hand. Lena, her eyes sharp, scanned the horizon for danger. Yuki, ever vigilant, watched from the shadows, ready to strike at a moment's notice. A storm gathered, dark and furious. Waves the size of mountains crashed over the deck. The wind howled like a banshee, ripping at the sails. And then, from the depths, it rose. The Kraken, its tentacles, each thicker than a longship, lashed out. The creature's eyes, cold and cruel, fixed on the silent serpent. A monstrous roar shook the very foundations of the sea.
Roar!
Terror threatened to consume them, but Bjorn rallied his crew.
For Frostbite!
He roared, his voice barely audible above the storm, and then they were upon the beast.
Let's take it down!
Bjorn, a whirlwind of axe and ninja stars, hacked at the Kraken's tentacles.
My shuriken will find their mark.
Yuki, a blur of motion, unleashed a volley of shuriken, each one finding its mark in the creature's hide.
Feel the fire and fury.
Lena, wielding fire and fury, danced across the deck, her axes singing a deadly song.
Hold tight. I'll steer us through this.
Thorvald, a mountain of strength, steered the silent serpent through the maelstrom, dodging the Kraken's attacks with impossible skill. The battle raged, a symphony of clashing steel, blinding speed and raw power, but finally, with a groan that shook the very heavens, the Kraken fell. The sea, stained with its black blood, calmed. The crew of the Silent Serpent, battered but unbroken, stood on the deck, watching as the monster sank beneath the waves. They had faced their first challenge, and they had emerged victorious.
This is only the beginning. The prophecy spoke of a great darkness, and we are sailing towards it.
Bjorn knew this was only the beginning. The prophecy had spoken of a great darkness, and they were sailing towards it.